Good morning. It's once again that time when I don't have reception, and I'm just maybe a little bit late for work listening to Glenn Beck. But before I listen to Glenn Beck, I like to listen to NPR. I like to hear both sides of the story with everything, just like we were talking about the Constitutional Convention. I kind of want to make another video about that. But I like to listen to this little show on NPR called The Writer's Almanac with Gerson Keeler, right? That's his name. The guy used to be on Prairie Home Companion. It's just 2-3 minutes long, but it's very interesting historical things and little things every day, and I enjoy listening to it. He spoke about how today was when General Cornwallis surrendered to George Washington, and I mean, I'm passing by West Point area more or less now, about 10 miles from West Point now as we're speaking, and how he spoke about how they marched from West Point to Yorktown, Virginia. Every night they would get up at 2 in the morning and marched. Think about the sacrifice that these men made so we could have this country now. How people are spitting on that great heritage that we have thanks to these great sacrifices. And it's just utterly, utterly shocking. And yes, we have a free press, but freedom still bears consequences. This is something I was listening to yesterday. They were talking about freedom of speech and freedom of the press. They didn't really mention, but freedom bears consequences. You can't just do whatever you want just because you're free. Freedom brings responsibility as well. And I think the media right now is being incredibly irresponsible. Now, I'm not like Mark Levin would say, I'm not a pom-pom boy for the president. But truth has to be brought out. You know, there's one thing Glenn Beck said 2 days ago or 3 days ago. He said, you know, one thing he wanted to say to the left after Trump won was, don't make the mistake I made. And he said, I don't mean don't make the mistake of telling the truth. He said he absolutely had to tell the truth about what was wrong with Obama, just like he tells the truth and what's right about Obama, and just like he tells the truth about what's right and wrong about Donald Trump. But don't become so arrogant. And he felt that that was a sin that he committed, and I see that in myself, to be convinced that your way is the only way, and that there isn't some goodness on the other side, and so forth. And the thing is I'll be honest, however bad we were against Obama, and I admit that, you know, maybe once in a while we took things a little too far. What they do to Trump is just utterly kooky and weird and ridiculous. I mean, the fact is, with Obama, most of the time we were right. And the fact of the matter is, when we were dealing with a president like Obama, he was like a Teflon Don. He could do whatever he wanted, because if you questioned him, you were called racist, even though he was only half black. All of a sudden, if you questioned his, and yet somehow somebody like Alan, who's that guy with 999? You know, this he was from Godfather's Pizza, and he was running for president, and they made some accusations against him of sexual impropriety. And the thing is, the same exact, similar, even worse, they were involved with drugs and homosexuality and things. Not that it makes a difference if it's homosexual or heterosexual. That's not the issue I'm saying. And prostitution, a lot of illegal activity was accused against Obama. The fellow who said he was directly involved with it took a lie detector test, passed it, and yet they're like, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory. And I'm like, what? Why is that so unbelievable? Like, why do they ignore that, and yet and it becomes racist if you question Obama, and yet what's the guy's name? You question him, who was really black, it's not racist. I don't remember the guy's name right now. I like the guy. I would have voted for him. Same thing. It should go without saying. It doesn't matter what color someone's skin is. I remember when I was a kid, I was all for Alan Keyes. Like, that was my guy. That's the guy I wanted to be president. And I just remember, people say, but he has no chance. I was like, but he's the real thing. He's honest, good religious guy. He was Catholic, Alan Keyes. That's the type of guy I want to be president, and it didn't matter the color of his skin. It mattered the content of his character, like Dr. King always said. And yet Obama, he could get away with whatever he wanted. And I don't remember the guy's name now. He was like, all of a sudden he was a persona non grata because they made some accusation against him, but the same accusation, and it was neither denied or confirmed, but this probably actually in many ways worse accusations were made against Obama, and nobody cared. And to me, neither of those things really have anything to do with being president. I don't care if Obama did these things that he was accused of. What I care about is the double standard that when a Republican, particularly an African-American Republican, is accused of something that's less egregious than what Obama's accused of, and yet his career is ruined, and yet Obama gets away with it. Again, I don't think, even though whatever Obama might have done was illegal, technically, I don't think it was the worst things in the world necessarily. I don't think it would disqualify him from the presidency, really, because of that. My issues with Obama would not have been with those accusations that were made, but rather with his policy, but also his corruption. I mean, this was a man who every day things were going on that made the Teapot Dome scandal look like, a storm in a teapot. Like there was nothing. The Teapot Dome scandal really wasn't that big of a scandal, but it became this huge scandal. But the thing is, Obama, he did stuff like that every day, worse things than that, but because he had this protexia, he could get away with whatever he wanted, and it's really quite offensive and upsetting. That's not what I was talking about here. Now, here you have President Trump. Everything he does, it's similar to what we see in Bloomingburg, and it's ironic how the opposition to the development in Bloomingburg all oppose Trump. It's the same type of nonsense of how these people on the left, they get away with whatever they want. I mean, in Bloomingburg, we saw a case where there was open voter fraud on the anti-development side. They brought in people, and it was probably linked to Bill Herman's office. Someone in his office sent this letter, but he tried to cover it up. encouraging people to commit voter fraud, and people did. And not only that, but the Board of Elections enabled it by not pursuing the challenges to the votes of the people who moved away. This was an open conspiracy, voter fraud, and yet that they got away with, and yet, Mr. Lamm and Mr. Nakdiman, I don't know why they pled guilty. It doesn't even make sense. They really didn't do anything wrong. I was there as eyewitness, but they just wanted this whole thing to go away. They're trying to make peace. They're trying to do what's right. They felt maybe they made some little honest mistake that they felt it's worthwhile for them to plead guilty for, because they're honest, upright, wonderful citizens who do great things for the whole community, not just the Jewish community, for the Gentile community too. They're really revitalizing not only Bloomingburg, but the whole town of Mamakating. They're really wonderful and honorable men, and that's part of the reason why they felt maybe they might have made some honest mistake, and they pled guilty. I don't know, whatever it is. So, but we see this double standard that's applied to Donald Trump. I was listening to NPR this morning, and they were talking about how Donald Trump removed the subsidies that were issued by executive order by President Obama, and President Trump removed them. But how did NPR report this? And now Congress is trying to act to give another 2 years for these subsidies, to maintain them, and how a group of governors are trying to encourage the Congress to act. There's a bipartisan plan to restore the subsidies temporarily for 2 years. Now, this is how it was reported on NPR. First, it mentioned the governors, that there's a group of governors who are trying to encourage Congress, which there's a bipartisan Senate and the House. There's a bipartisan effort to restore these subsidies for 2 years. Then they reported that President Trump opposes the subsidies, and that's why he removed President Obama's executive order for the subsidies. And in the bill that's being offered, there's at least a page to make sure that's not a quote-unquote bailout to the insurance companies, which is what President Trump opposes, and that it should serve the people. Now, first of all, who doesn't want to serve the people? That's why they're trying to fix this mess. And whatever it is that serves the people, whether it's a government answer, whether it's a private sector answer, somehow we gotta serve the people. Now, the fact of the matter is, the reason why President Trump, what they did not report is that President Trump said he is willing to sign this into law if Congress gives a 2-year temporary solution to this issue. They're trying to make President Trump look like a bad guy, when maybe in other things he is a bad guy. I don't know. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. Who he is. I'm saying maybe there are certain things that are in his policy you oppose, and that's legitimate. But they're just out, especially, you don't get much more openly left-wing than NPR, but left-wing media, they don't even care to tell the truth that, yes, because the fact of the matter is President Trump is not an ideologue. He just wants to do whatever it is that's going to be best for the American people. He is a martyr, really. He is a living martyr, because look at what just happened. Forbes just reported that his net worth went down by $600 million. Which probably to him it's not that big of a deal, but still, that's a lot of money. But why is he willing to endure that? Is for the American people. Now, you can agree or disagree with his policies, but you have to admit that what he's doing is totally altruistic, as opposed to if Hillary Clinton would have, God forbid, become the president, everything she would have been doing was to pay back all the people who have bribed her over the years. I mean, here's a guy who knows the system, who was in the system, who was kind of one of those guys who was kind of working the system, and now that he knows it, he can destroy that system that was so corrupt. He's kind of atoning for his past sins in many ways by this martyrdom of the presidency that he's going through, and in many ways the insults that he's bearing are a major aspect of his own martyrdom. It's many ways a lot like Mr. Lamm, who's also essentially a martyr, serving the community with love and honor and respect and care, and being spit upon and insulted, and really bearing tremendous loss. Really, he's also essentially a living martyr. Now, the fact of the matter is, President Trump said he will be willing to sign a bill into law that would keep these subsidies going. The major reason why he got rid of this executive order that President Obama made was because the executive order was illegal. And again, maybe it was what needed to be at the time because he couldn't get Congress to act at the time. And in many ways, President Trump is more effective to get it done. I mean, this is something we see quite often in politics. It's a phenomenon you often see, even though I'm not a Zionist, I'm not a big fan of Israel, but if you study a little bit of Israeli politics, in general, the goals of the left will often be fulfilled more easily by a right-wing administration than by a left-wing administration, because the right wing won't have the opposition of the right. Now, the thing is, President Trump generally does have opposition both from the right and the left, which is wonderful and healthy and great. And that's how, and ensuring the true Republican quality of this great country, that the president does not have all the power, and it's not supposed to be. He has some power, but he doesn't have all the power, and it's a balance of powers, it's a separation of powers, and that's what really is one of the things that makes America great. And I think President Trump recognizes that and celebrates that, because he's not doing what President Obama did, acting by executive order, which undermines a republic. But then people are like, oh, look, President Trump, he's doing just as many executive orders, if not more, than President Obama did. No, he isn't. All of his executive orders are just either undoing President Obama's executive orders, or the one that's really controversial was just continuing. As I said before, one of President Obama's executive orders, that being the travel ban. So this is quite interesting, meaning NPR here, they know very well what they're saying is yellow journalism. It borders on propaganda. It borders on falsehood. That's not... Now, to call them out as fake news, even though they still have the total right to keep reporting their fake news, that is not a breach in any way of the free press. But the free press has a responsibility to not make fake news. And this is essentially, this way that they reported this story is absolutely fake news. There's no question that this is fake news. That this is not, it's a subtle type of fake news. It's funny that they use this term fake news, and they're like, where did it come from? It really came from Saturday Night Live. In the 90s, I remember the term fake news referred to either Saturday Night Live or later on to, that term in Saturday Night Live really goes back to the 80s, and I think even to the 70s, when they had the Weekend Update. I think it started already from the 70s, the Weekend Update, and they still have it. But then the Daily Show, was the other fake news. Not that the news they were reporting was fake, but it was being reported in a fake way. It was reported to be humorous, to be a parody. I remember when I was a kid, sometimes I couldn't sleep at night, and I would watch World News Now on ABC, and it was also kind of tongue-in-cheek, kind of funny news reporting. It wasn't as outright comedic as Saturday Night Live or The Daily Show, but the thing is, this is the problem with the media. I mean, the fact of the matter is, President Trump supports handling this in a legislative way, which is the constitutional way, and what he's essentially doing is restoring the constitutional republic that we so love, instead of just doing whatever just doing whatever he wants. So does anybody have any comments on this? I'd like to make another video today about the Constitutional Convention. I really appreciate, I got one wonderful response on Twitter about it, and from an organization that's been supporting constitutional conventions every 20 years for, I think, at least 50 years. It's an organization that's been around for 100 years. I think it's called United Citizens. I don't remember. Or United Citizenry. So it's quite interesting. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Tell me what you think. I mean, I'd like to see a little bit more honesty here, because this twisting by the media, it's really it's really truly nefarious and evil, and they have to, they can't do that. I don't know, like, how do you just totally lie about this and totally misrepresent what President Trump really stands for with this issue? Because he really doesn't care that much about one way or the other. All he cares about is what's right for the American people, and if this is what's going to work, he's going to support it, because he's not an ideologue. He's not really a Republican. Even though I would like to see Obamacare gone, but I see things are getting better now. All right, I gotta go. It's time for work. Talk to you later.